Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Hangout. My name is Joe Grabowski. I'll be your host for today. And for those who don't know, we're all about bringing science, adventure, and conservation into classrooms across North America and hopefully beyond. Very excited to be joined by an awesome group of classrooms from across North America, as well as our guest today, Les Stroud. So most of you know Les as Survivorman, writing, filming, and hosting the hit TV show with that same name. Where he's dropped off alone in a remote region of our planet with a camera and just his unparalleled survival skills. So what you may not know is that Les has produced and appeared in numerous other shows for the Discovery Channel, including hosting the 20th anniversary of Shark Week. He's an accomplished author and speaker and a very talented musician, jumping up on the stage with the likes of Slash, Chicago, and Leonard Skinner. So Les, it's great to have you joining us today from the West Coast.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. Okay, so I've got images coming in and out here. There we go. I'm back to you. What will I, just as I get into this, Joe, just give me a heads up on the technology. Who do you want me, who am I looking at as we do this? Just the open screen as you give it to me?
Yeah, so right now, all the classes can see us live on screen. It focuses right in.
All right.
And
there we go.
If you're ready to share the little video you wanted to start with.
Yeah, there's one screen that keeps jumping on top of, I see you, of course, but the screen, the gentleman, Billy, it looks like, that screen seems to keep taking over mine, but that's okay, no problem. So let's do this, everybody. First of all, welcome. Normally this video would play before you even meet me, before we even speak, but I'm going to go to screen share here and go to desktop and start this, and I will There we go. You guys got me okay?
You're back. Yeah.
I'm back. All right. Everybody saw the video okay?
It was going okay on our end, but it looked like a few classes might have been just kind of checking their settings. But I can give the link as well, and they can check it out afterwards too.
Not a problem. All right. Well, I'll take it from here then. So, guys, first of all, thanks very much for allowing me to be part of this. Actually, flip me over, Joe, so I can see one of the classrooms. Any one of the classrooms. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to them. All right. There we go. Hi, guys. I see. It looks like Billy's class. That's you guys. All right. So, but I see that there's some other classrooms in there as well, too. So, I guess there's really kind of two ways that I'd love to talk with you guys today after speaking with the Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants people, and that's one in terms of life and doing the things that I've done, and then the other in terms of conservation and my involvement with that. Survivorman itself, it was really just what I thought was a really terrific idea. My original, the way I made it all happen was really quite simple, and it's good stuff for you guys to realize that a lot of times some of the coolest things in life happen on very simple, very basic ideas, and it's all about getting up off the couch and off your pants and making off from sitting down and making it work. With Survivorman, I had had this idea because I'd been learning survival and teaching survival and outdoor adventure and dog sledding and kayaking and canoeing and winter camping and all these things. And with the survival stuff, I thought, this could be pretty cool to film. Now, I had already been doing a lot of film work before in my world as a musician. Before I started survival, I was a musician in Toronto and playing in the bars and playing in different clubs and stuff. And as a result of that, I did music videos. And as a result of that, I learned how to operate a camera and do some editing. All right, so we fast forward to this period of my life where, sorry, what's that?
I didn't hear anything. Okay.
Never mind, Joe. It was Billy talking to his class there. Okay. Where was I? It was a matter of taking all of the skills that I had gathered throughout my life. And this is one thing you start to discover about life. As you get a little bit older, everything that you learn how to do feeds back in on itself later. It becomes like a little toolkit you carry with you for life, things that you can always use in your world as you progress. Joe, throw me over to another classroom if you can. So I'm just looking at you at the moment.
Let me see. So Mrs. Patterson's class should be up now.
Mrs. Pat. Nope, I'm just looking at you. You are a handsome man though, Joe, but still.
Yeah. Mrs. Patterson's class, go ahead and wave at the camera.
No, I got you, Joe. Oh, there she is. There they are. Hi, guys. All right, so I'll carry on what I was talking about. What I was saying is that as you guys get older, every single thing that you're learning now becomes part of your little toolkit you can use for later on in life, things you can do to get to the places you want to be. And I learned that because I'd learned how to work a camera and do video editing and so on, that I could maybe film all of my survival adventures. So one day I started filming my survival adventures, and I thought it looked pretty cool. Then I did something that we call a cold call. Now, a cold call is when you decide to call somebody to see if you can get some help, to see if you can do something, to see if you can go somewhere. And you've never met them before. They don't know who you are. This call wasn't set up or arranged by anybody. You're just phoning. You're just calling, or you're going to see someone. Doesn't even have to be on the telephone. It doesn't have to be by text. It's all called a cold call. Well, I believe a lot in those cold calls, because the thing is, if you call someone up or you get in touch with somebody and you ask if you can do something and they say no, that's the worst thing that they can do. That's it. That's all they can do is say no. The worst thing that can happen on a cold call is someone saying, no, oh, well, whatever, move on, do something else. Well, I made this cold call to a television network, and I said, look, I've got this idea of survival, and I could go out and survive by myself, and I can film it and bring you back this whole thing on film, this odyssey. And they loved it. And they thought, this was perfect. They actually said we were looking to do something exactly like that, and we didn't know who to call. So that's what you call right place, right time. This is, you might hear this word every once in a while called synergy. It's about when something just, when it all seems to make sense. It's like, well, this is working. And that's what worked really well there was they just said, yeah, they were looking for somebody like that. On my own mind, I thought to make the cold call, and the synergy, as we call it, of that time just all connected. There's something that I want to touch on about ideas, because Survivorman was a pretty cool idea. Actually, you know, just with, I think it's in Mrs. Patterson's class. So I'm just going to ask you a class. How many of you guys in the class have seen Survivorman by a show of hands or know about it? Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. All right. So then you know where I'm coming from here. This was really just an idea. That's all it was. It was just a little idea in my brain. One thing I like to say is that if you have a really good idea, it's always a really good idea. I mean, at some point it might become, you know, past its time and you can't do it anymore, but usually it's, you hang on to it, it'll always be a good idea. And my idea to film myself in survival was pretty good. But the thing to realize about ideas is this: if you've got something really cool you want to do, and I know that in your schools and that, a lot of different teachers and different counselors and that, they're going to say, look, you come to talk to your adults, come to talk to teachers, come to talk to counselors, your parents, your uncles, your aunts, whomever. That's very true. Seeking outside help is really important. But you have to remember one thing. Your idea will always only ever be your idea. It's your passion that will make something happen, not somebody else's. They might give you some help, but you can't expect someone else to make your passion and your idea come to life. You have to do that yourself. And I always understood that. Survivorman, you know, in the beginning was really always all about connecting to nature. That's what, I mean, I taught some pretty cool skills and survived in some pretty crazy places. So, you know, the stuff about geography was fantastic. Stuff about when I survived with different Aboriginal cultures in the middle of nowhere, in jungles, deserts, in the Arctic, that was all really amazing. But in the end, Survivorman was always about connecting to the earth, about connecting to nature. That was what I call the baseline underneath everything. And that's something to remember, because whatever you want to do in life, whatever you get into doing, you've got to come from a really strong place, a really good place. And so in Survivorman, every single morning before every Survivorman, if any of you have seen lots of Survivorman shows, every Survivorman show you've ever seen, every single day, every morning, I would start by going out and sitting by the river or on the side of a mountain or in the desert on a sand dune or by the ocean. And I would just sort of kind of really try to think deeply and relax and think, okay, whatever I do today, I want to make sure that it's something that affects people in a positive way. I want to make sure that it's something that inspires people in a positive way. And that's what you call coming from a really good place, coming from a mission that is bigger than just the little thing I got to do. Like, okay, well, I got to go make this shelter now or start a fire or whatever and film it on camera. That's cool enough in itself. But knowing that I was trying to inspire people through it, was something different. It was something stronger. And for about, you know, I'd get up from that. I think, oh, well, that was really stupid. Who's going to be inspired just because I built a shelter? Well, about a year went by, first doing Survivorman shows, which, by the way, I started Survivorman probably before a lot of you, so looking at the ages in the classrooms, probably before a lot of you guys were even born. And about a year went by of making Survivorman, and then I started getting letters from people and emails and saying that, you know, you changed, the show changed my life. You know, I got out of a bad situation because of watching your show. You got me through a bad time in the hospital. I decided to study environmental studies and you know, because of your show. And those things started to happen, which showed me that because I had a really good mission when I started Survivorman, that was what was more important than just knowing how to do a fireball. All right. So for me, starting the day that way was always vitally important. As I said, there's two sides to what I wanted to talk with you guys about. One was a little bit of what I've just said about your life and the fact that you guys are going to start to have good ideas, really cool ideas. If it's a cool idea now, it'll be a cool idea in a week. It's always going to be a cool idea. Always remember that. And it doesn't matter if your mom or your dad or your brothers or sisters or teachers, anybody doesn't think it's a good idea. dwell on it, let it live, let it go for a while. Maybe it'll take a long time, but for you, it's a good idea, and you want to let it grow inside your mind and heart. Once you start, now the cool thing about once you start running it by people, your ideas past your teachers and so on, they can help you focus it, and that's the key. Is they'll help you. If you look at the idea and it's got a whole bunch of parts to it, they can help you decide which parts aren't really going to help you at all, and which parts are going to help you a lot. And that's how I do everything to this day. I still live a lot of adventure. I just got back from Mongolia, where I had an idea at one point that I should film these shows with my son. So we started doing Survivorman and Son shows. And the first one, he was 16 years old on his first one. And we just got back from Mongolia, where he turned 19. And we shot a show out there. So it's coming off a long way. Mongolia was very cool, by the way. The next part of this is about the whole connecting to the earth. You know what? There's a possible bizarre situation for you today. You guys got up, had breakfast, walked on the sidewalk, maybe got in a car, maybe got on a bus, came into school. You're in school all day now. You might get outside a bit, maybe not. You're going to go back home, go home, do your homework, and have dinner, maybe watch some TV, I don't know, go online, do something like that, talk with your family, whatever you might do. Then you're going to go to bed. And that whole time, did you even once touch a blade of grass? Have a branch of a tree scrape past your arm? A lot of times, especially as you get older, the answer is no. And that's it's a problem. You don't have to be Survivorman to connect with nature. You don't have to go off into the mountains of Peru or Madagascar or the deserts to experience and connect to nature. I'm looking outside a window right now as I talk to you, and I can see trees and grass. You probably have trees and grass somewhere close to where you are right now, a park down the street. Even that is nature enough to connect to it. And specifically getting sort of close with trees and plants, it's amazing what being around nature can do for you. It makes you think smarter. It makes you smarter. This stuff isn't just like hooey-fooey nonsense talking now. This is stuff that scientists are proving now, that the more time you spend in nature, the smarter you are, the healthier you are, the quicker you recover from things, the less stressed out you are. Maybe you guys aren't stressed out now, but when you get older, you start to get stressed out a lot. And time in nature can make a massive, massive difference. The energy of the plants and trees affect you, whether you want them to or not. They affect you, and it's only positive. Now, I want to make a difference between being out in nature in free time and being out in nature in terms of sports. It's still really good to get out and do the outdoor sports. I do love them, whether it's rock climbing or kayaking or hang gliding or ropes courses or whatever. All of that's really cool and is good, but it's not nature itself. There's a difference between that and just getting out amongst the trees and allowing yourself free time in nature. They actually made a rule in Japan now called Shinrin-yoku, where business people they're, I use this word carefully, but forced. They're mandatory. They have to go out and spend 10 minutes a day sitting amongst trees. And they made that law because they realized that it's hugely beneficial to people feeling less stressed and doing better work. So, obviously there's teachers listening to this too. And the fact is that just having your teachers get you guys outside can help you learn better. And that's, again, science now. This is proven science, not just earthy people making statements out there. Now, when I say that, and I'll close this in now, we'll get ready for some question and answering because I know my time's getting close here. But when I say that about getting out in nature, there's also a thing that we call a life of conflict. What it means is, look, we all have cars and TVs, and we all have internet, computers, iPhones, and Androids. I'm talking to you through incredible technology. Don't get me wrong. I do love technology. If it wasn't for me watching TV when I was a kid, programs by this guy named Jacques Cousteau, I never would have made Survivorman, and I never would have come to love nature. And the new VR technology, virtual reality, 360 stuff, it's all pretty great. But it's not nature itself. I like sometimes to sort of say that the new technology, and I do embrace it and I do love it, It's like, you've heard that phrase often on the news, a gateway drug. This is kind of like a really good gateway drug to an addiction that you want to have, an addiction to nature, an addiction to being out amongst the trees. And so technology can get you there, help you to get there, and it can inspire you to go there, but it's not nature itself. You still, as much as you might want to go online and do some virtual reality where it takes you to Yosemite Park down in the United States, hey, that's awesome. But then you want to really go to Yosemite Park and smell the trees and be there. I'll leave you with this. In the world of conservation, it can get really confusing these days. And sometimes the question is, yeah, but what can I do? And given your ages and that, here's what you can do. You can do whatever it is you can do. He can do what he can do. She can do what she can do. And I'll do what I do. That's the key here. No one can give you a formula and say, go do this and you will save that forest. Go do this and the fish will live. Go do this and the grizzly bears will be able to thrive. No, those are different details. You might want to be a scientist and study marine biology and gather the information we all need to make smart decisions. You might want to get into politics and change policies that affect the entire planet. You might want to get down and dirty and be out on the ground saving wildlife. There's all sorts of things that can be done in the name of conservation, but the important thing is to do something. And it goes all the way back to the beginning of this conversation. It'll be your idea. It'll be what's in your heart and in your mind. And you find the things that you can do to help protect the planet. And that's what I'm doing. I do music now. I perform concerts, and everything I sing about is all about nature. And every connection, every focus of my concert series and the albums I record now. And again, Survivorman was always about connecting to nature. The last thing I'll leave you with this, and then I'm going to pass it back to Joe, and we can move forward into Q&A. But the last thing I'll leave you with this when it comes to our connectedness to nature. When a tree outside your window right now breathes out, you breathe in. When you breathe out, the trees breathe in. There's nothing more connected that I can think of than that. That to me is the perfect example of how connected we are to nature, and that will never change. No matter what we do to our planet, the fact is we got to keep breathing what the trees breathe out, which is why we need trees. Joe, I'll pass it over to you now, and happy to do a Q&A. Hopefully the technology will hold up here.
All right. Thanks so much, Les. I really enjoyed the messages you shared. I think they're so important, especially getting outside and having an idea and chasing it, because too often I think kids believe that there's nothing new to explore, nothing left to discover, and that couldn't be further from the truth, because if you haven't done it, then it hasn't been done. So I think that's important for students to remember, that there's so much to see, do, and discover. Just because you're not the first doesn't mean there isn't so much to do.
Oh, and I agree. And I think with me, guys, people, if you look at that phrase, we call it a bucket list. And a bucket list is simply all the things you want to do. When I run into people who have nothing on their bucket list, they'll say, well, if you could do whatever you wanted to do, what would it be? And if the answer is, I don't know, there's nothing I really can think of, I just get really sad, because I have more things on my bucket list than my life will ever have enough time to do. And if I can impress one thing upon everybody listening, is that they start getting things on their bucket list, and then they start going at all of them and checking them off.
All right, I'm with you on that. My list is probably would stretch right out of my classroom to the schoolyard, but maybe one day we'll get to everything. Let's jump to our first class. So I'm going to introduce Mrs. Dowson's class. They're grade 9s in Stratford, Ontario. I'll turn your microphone on, and you can go ahead with a couple questions.
Hi. Who's the question? Come on up.
Will you just see right there?
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
Just come down a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Of all the places you've been, what was your favorite place to be?
Okay. Yeah, great question. So if anybody didn't quite hear that, technically the question was, of all the places I've been, what's my favorite place? Now, just like we talked about the bucket list, it gets really hard to answer that question. I have seen so many different beautiful places around the earth. I've also seen some places that have disappointed me, to be honest with you, on a couple of levels. Disappointed me in terms of, well, this isn't all that great compared to where I live, or in terms of pollution. But in terms of what I love and the places that I've been, I guess the tops of the list, I really have enjoyed the high Peruvian Andes. So the high Andes mountains in Peru are really breathtaking. The Utah Canyonlands, Moab, Zion, Bryce Canyon, the Escalante, unbelievably beautiful area, and you can do incredible mountain biking there and hiking. And then the high Canadian Arctic also reigns as one of my top places to see. If you ever have a chance to go to the Arctic, you've got to take it. The spring breakup when all of the wildlife is going, it's crazy, it's amazing. So I do really love the high Canadian Arctic. Over all of that, I will say that for some reason, and I think it was my childhood and watching a lot of Tarzan movies, but one of my deepest passions still remains going to jungles. Jungles to me feels right for me. I always feel good there. I mean, these other places are astoundingly beautiful, but the jungle is kind of a place where I feel like I'm home. So there's my answer.
Yeah, the jungle. When you just mentioned that, it made me think of the episode where you're in the jungle and you could hear the jaguar at night when you were trying to sleep.
Yeah, that goes back that was actually the first season, I believe, of Survivorman, and very intense situation. I mean, since that time, I've been treed by a 1,500-pound moose. I got treed by a tiger in India just this past year. So I've had a few encounters, but the jaguar one was the very first, and so it remains was one of the freakiest for sure. It chased me all the way back to camp.
All right, grade 9s. One more question if you have it.
One more question?
Oh, anyone have one?
Yes.
Okay.
Come on up.
Come on up.
Actually, no.
Are you sure? No, we're good, thank you.
I don't want to interrupt you.
All right, let's jump to Mrs. Patterson's class. They are joining us from Gaspé, Quebec. They're a grade 5-6 class, and let me make sure your mic's on. There you go.
All right, a question?
Yeah.
Ashton had a question. You need to say it nice and loud. You can even come up if you want, Ashton.
What was your toughest experience while you're like surviving?
Okay, so I've heard that. The question was, what was my toughest experience while surviving? So there were a couple of situations, but here's the way I want to answer this. The reason why I had a tough situation was my own, what we call cockiness. Basically, I got that attitude where there's this phrase where they say, "Oh, I got this." There's two ways to say that phrase. Sometimes you say it like, "Okay, guys, no problem, man, I got this." That's one way to say that phrase, like you've got something under control. But the other way is the way when you're feeling way overly confident. You go like, "I got this. I'm Survivorman. What could go wrong?" Well, whenever I get that attitude is when I get myself in trouble. And twice I had that attitude. And I was going down a mountain in Norway, in the Norway episode, where the first part of that episode, I actually survived inside a car for 4 days. And then the second part, I had to go down a mountain. And the same thing in Romania. And in Romania, so in Norway, it was freezing rain and wet snow, and I was drenched to the bone. In Romania, it was 75 degrees and sunny, but both times I ended up at a cliff that I couldn't get around, and it was very, very dangerous. So the best way to answer that question is not so much, the sensational part of what actually happened, which in this case was trying to go down these two mountains and coming up to cliff edges where I had nowhere to go. So it have to go back up kind of thing. But the best way is to say that the reason why I get in trouble sometimes, get into something dangerous, is because I get a little too overconfident and forget to calm myself down and think about all of the good skills that I have and make sure that I do things right. Next question there. I think there was another question in that classroom.
Yeah, come closer so we can hear. We have 2 questions.
Were you ever scared to get hurt or die in any of the time situations?
Ever scared to get hurt or what?
Or die.
Or die. It's hard. It's strange to answer that question because really the way I want to answer it is no, never. That's one way I want to answer it. The other answer is all the time, always. And that's why, with Survivorman, people might think, oh, it's like this guy's like an adrenaline junkie. This is a phrase that we say, meaning can't, like going after everything dangerous and crazy all the time. Couldn't be farther from the truth. Everything I do is really calculated. We call it a calculated risk. So every risk I take being Survivorman and going out there to survive is something I've thought well out in advance. I make sure I cover all the bases. I make sure that I don't get hurt. I've never been hurt really in a Survivorman situation, and I'm still alive. And that's because really, in a way, I'm kind of boring. As I said, I'm just kind of a big pussy, big chicken. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to die. So what I do is I make sure that I know the skills I need for where I'm going. I make sure I have the knowledge I need for where I'm going. And then my job is to go there, survive, and film everything I do so you can learn the skills from me. That's my job. So scared? No, not really, but well prepared. As I say, I'm very cautiously concerned for my own well-being is what I like to say, so that I don't have to be scared.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson's class. Good questions. We're jumping in Kingston, Ontario. There they are. Miss Candella's grade 7s. Go ahead.
Speak up, okay?
What's the main inspiration behind the music?
Oh, hang on. Everybody's talking in the background, guys. Can't hear the dude in the red talking.
What's the main inspiration behind the music?
They just did it again. Hold on, one more time. Everybody go. Shh. Okay, red shirt dude, go.
Inspiration behind your music.
What's the main inspiration behind my music? Definitely, you know, I've been prone to write songs like anybody else does, love songs, that sort of stuff. But now a lot of everything that I'm doing is focused on 3 angles of nature. One is connecting you to nature. So an Arctic Mistress, if you go online and Google Arctic Mistress, my video will be there, and it's all these beautiful images of the Arctic. And that song celebrates the beauty of nature. I have new material coming out. I'm working with people like Slash. He's recorded the solo for me on a song called One Giant Farm. And that song is a bit of a cautionary tale about the state of the oceans. And then lastly, sometimes my inspiration is to talk to people, basically your age group, guys just like you in your grades, and say, you know what, maybe it's a call to action. Maybe, you know, if it's not going to be done right over here, maybe we need to do something about it, because I don't want to see, you know, direct pollution going into Lake Ontario sort of thing. And so sometimes that's a call to action. So my inspiration from my music rests on those 3 levels of celebrating the earth.
What's your last name?
Yeah, go ahead. Touchdown t-shirt there.
What's the most important skill you've learned in the Survivorman series?
The most important skill I've learned in the Survivorman series. You know what? I don't know if anybody else in survival agrees with me, but tough. I've done it more than they have. Fire starting. Fire starting to this day is still. It's like, I don't care if I'm in a desert, a jungle where it's hot, or of course the Arctic, or a wintry Canadian, you know, Muskoka, Northern Ontario. Fire starting. To me, if you can get a fire going anywhere, anytime, it fixes a lot of problems. Signaling, keeping you warm, cooking your food, boiling your water, keeping away the creatures. It can do a lot. So if I had to pick a specific skill that's based on survival, that's it for me. Being able to get a fire going anywhere, anytime.
All right, great questions. We're going to jump to San Antonio, Texas, to Mr. Gallagher's grade 4s. Your mic's on.
Okay, move over. Here.
Texas.
There you go. You're on it.
I'm not far from you guys, actually. You know, I'm actually in the United States right now. I'm doing this to you from Oregon, Southern Oregon.
Oh, so that's not too far from us.
Yeah.
Hit it.
Was your dream to be a Survivorman?
You know, it was my dream to be a Survivorman. Kind of, yeah. It kind of was in a way. I'll tell you why. When I grew up, my favorite thing on television was a guy called Jacques Cousteau, and he dove in oceans all around the world and filmed it. And my other favorite thing was watching Tarzan movies, which was a guy surviving in the jungle, all really primitive like. And if you think about it, Survivorman is the hybrid. I became what I wanted to be when I was your age, when I was in grade 4 and grade 5 watching these shows. I wanted to be something in between this filmmaker named Jacques Cousteau and this movie hero named Tarzan. I wanted to be something in between those two guys. And lo and behold, if you really think about Survivorman, it's kind of what it is. So yeah, it was my dream. And that's why I never gave up on that dream, and I'm still living it.
Awesome. All right, you got another one? Okay, go. Right here. Step over, put the orange peel down.
There you are.
We're doing lunch, sorry.
No problem.
All right, hit it.
Did you go to college to...
Look at him.
Did you go to college to learn about survival?
So did I go to college to learn about survival? In a way, yes, I did. I took courses from all kinds of teachers. There were some college courses that you could take as well. Now that I took, in fact, that's how I started. It was evening college, not so much university. So I don't know that survival isn't actually, it's part of a university or like an American college system. More like a community colleges normally have the survival courses. But I also learned all around North America from different teachers. And a funny thing is that after I put Survivorman on the TV, which by the way was the very first survival show ever, the classrooms that everybody was teaching survival in just exploded. And I got a lot of thank yous from a lot of survival teachers because people started getting interested in survival because of Survivorman. So there you go.
All right, great questions. Texas, thanks so much. We're gonna jump to Terrence Bay, Ontario. Mrs. Keeter's group is joining us, and they are a grade 5-6 class. So let me just turn your microphone on. There we go.
You guys wave.
Mrs. Keeter, try from your end. I turn it on my end, but we can't hear you guys, and we missed that really good cheer, so you'll have to do that again too.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead, Leah.
Out of all the things you do, what is your biggest passion?
So it's okay, Joe. I can hear them fine, but maybe you're not hearing them. Is that the problem? I can hear you guys. I don't think Joe can hear you guys. So
okay,
the question.
Sound back. We're good.
Okay, good. So the question was, out of all the things, so I'm only looking at you though, Joe. Out of all the things that I do, what was my biggest? What? I just missed the last word.
Wait, I have to.
Out of all the things you do, what is your biggest passion?
Okay. Out of all the things I do, what's my biggest passion? I probably, it's always a tug of war between music and nature. And maybe that's why I'm doing what I'm doing and connecting music and nature together and doing the concerts. My biggest passion is, my passion is also fickle. It moves around with my mood. Maybe I'm really into diving and I'll do my diving for a while. Maybe it's, you know, running the hills and exercising. Maybe it's photographing wildlife or playing my music, writing songs. So my passion definitely moves around, but I gotta say the easiest answer, I suppose, is my greatest passion is constantly combining nature and music together.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Go ahead. Yep.
What's the worst thing you ever ate or drank?
The worst thing I ever ate or drank. In a place called Indonesia in Siberut, the island of Siberut, I was with a native group called the Mentawai, and I was surviving there. In fact, the shaman, we went into the jungle, and the shaman gave me a special tattoo that he did with a stick and a nail, which hurt. And but it was this big ceremony in the jungle, and they wanted me to taste this bug that they eat, and it was a larva about 8 inches long, all white, and had a big head on the front of it, and the head could bite you really badly. And the kids would take it and they'd pop the head off and they put it in their mouth, and it would hang out of their mouth, and the thing would be undulating like this as they would be eating it. So they wanted me to eat it, so they passed it to me. and I popped it in my mouth and ate it, and it kind of tasted like if you took some milk and put it in a Ziploc bag and left it out in the sun for 3 weeks. It was disgusting, really, really disgusting. It was called the sago larva. It was gross. And drank, nothing really. But you know what? Something I didn't tell you about that. I have a ritual, actually, as far as drinking goes. I have a ritual wherever I go somewhere natural. I'm pretty good at figuring out whether water's clean or not, and I'll look around and I'll look for a fresh running stream. And if I determine that stream is safe, what I like to do is I like to get down sort of like in a push-up position, and I plunge my face into the water and I drink from that stream wherever I go somewhere in nature. I do that all the time. It's a little ritual, and for me it's a way of connecting to nature. It's like, okay, now I've kind of partaken of the water of the land, and I always feel connected that way. So.
All right, it's very cool. Great questions too, and a great story about that bug. We'll jump to our last classroom, Mr. Van Schutt's classroom. They are joining us from Forest, Ontario, and they're a grade 6-7 class.
Go ahead, Ben.
Is the Bigfoot footage real?
Well, now let's see. How do I answer that question? The question is the Bigfoot footage real? Wow. As far as I can tell, yeah.
Oh, not real.
As far as I can tell you, that's a big question. Here, let me answer. I'll make it a serious question, and I'll answer you this way. There's two ways to ask about that whole phenomenon. One way is to say, do you believe in Bigfoot? That's one way to ask a question. And if anybody asks me like that at a party, it's like, conversation's over. Another way to ask it is to say, do you think it's possible in this day and age, in all the remote forests around North America or the world, that there might be a species that is a high level of intelligence whose aim is to remain secretive, yet is responsible for hundreds of thousands of anecdotal references of sightings and rock throwings and vocalizations and footprints and blood and sweat found and fur found and DNA studies, and is responsible and is part of more than a few hundred cultures in the past who just claim that it's there no matter what. That's a different question to ask, and that opens up the door to some really crazy possibilities. The funny thing about that phenomenon is that it's a real slippery slope. You have to be really prepared to ask that question intelligently and really prepared for the potential answers that might be there. And really prepared to see it through to the end. You can't treat it as water cooler discussion, as we call it. You can't treat it like at a party, go, yeah, and throw out a couple of facts. It doesn't work that way. It's a pretty deep phenomenon to talk about, and it takes you to another world altogether when you start getting into it. And I didn't answer the question, I know that, but there you go. There's my thoughts on it.
Perfect, thank you. Do we got time for one more? Go ahead, Josh.
Have you ever eaten something and get really sick from it after?
Have I ever eaten anything and gotten really sick after? Yeah, way too many times to even remember. I think I know that there's a couple of times on camera where I got pretty sick eating some roots and tubers and things like that. But I can tell you about a nasty time once where I'm pretty sure what I picked up. People ask me, like, what's been the worst part of Survivorman? Really? It's been getting a parasite. And I'm pretty sure I got a parasite in my stomach one time from eating, I don't know what. I've been to so many places that particular time period. Could have been a snake, could have been the turtle in Georgia, could have been, I don't know what it was. But I got some kind of parasite. And this parasite decided that it wanted to live in my mouth. Now, this is like, when I say a parasite, this is microscopic. You can't see it. But I'd wake up some mornings and the roof of my mouth would be all red and raw. And I would go in and see the doctors, and I suffered with like that for about a year, and there were times I had to eat with a straw because it was so painful, till finally one doctor who was a big specialist, he gave me some pills to take, and they were not nice pills. That kind of, I call them kill everything in your system pills. And I had to take them, and eventually that got rid of the parasite for me. But that's the nastiest thing about the stuff that I've done out there is in eating different things without always knowing what it is. You can get some nasty parasites, and I definitely have had a couple.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Well, Les, that was awesome today. The messages you shared with us before we started were right where they should be, right on course for classroom teachers. You know, sometimes we think our students suffer from nature deficit disorder. They're just not getting outside enough, and they're not spending enough time outside. So great message. Following your dreams is another great message, and don't let people tell you otherwise. That perfect, right on. And the stories that you were able to share now in the Q&A were awesome. So Les, I thank you so much for joining us today.
This has been absolutely my pleasure, and I do know well the nature deficit disorder concept. And I think the good news is there's an antidote for it. Get out in nature, antidote. Sorry, and so I agree with everything you guys are doing. Thanks a lot to all of the people, all of you guys who've shown up today. I really appreciate it. And Joe, thank you for giving me this time and allowing me to come and share in this with you guys.
All right, so what we like to do right at the end, Les, is I'll turn on the microphones. It'll get a little loud, but we'll let the classroom say goodbye and thank you. And we'll sign off for today. But again, thank you so much.
Anytime.
All right, everybody, thank you so much.
Hang on. Hang on, hang on, hang on. You ready?
Very cool. Mike,
got my own bobblehead. It doesn't get any better than that.
That's how you know you made it, when you have a bobblehead. All right, Les, thanks so much. We're signing off. Thanks, everybody. Classrooms, you were amazing. And we'll see you next time.